It's a wholesome Wednesday, and we are so excited to be broadcasting the news that are making headlines across our beautiful continent. This is your favorite current affairs show. It is Africa Good Morning, proudly brought to you by NTV, and I am Aina Raiza alongside Diana Master. Moro Mamas.
How are you?
I'm
good, thanks. How are you? I like how we're matching today.
We always match.
We always match. And you know what's funny? Today we're actually matching with the whole theme of the show, the colors of the show.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yes.
But yeah.
Speaking of the show, let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Storm Freddy, more than 400 still missing in Malawi. Zimbabwe's new 300 megawatt coal-fired plant starts feeding into grid. In Namibia, court cancels nationality of child of same-sex couple. We're also going to be speaking to Ari Hochad, who will also fill us in on the news making waves in South Africa. Stick around, top stories coming up right after this.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
In our top stories this morning, more than 400 people are still missing in Malawi. Authorities in Malawi says the number of people who are still missing following Storm Freddy has risen from 349 to 427 as more countries continue to send humanitarian aid. Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs on Monday said it received rapid assessment reports from 15 affected regions in the country. As of Monday, the 20th of March 2023, the number of displaced people is at 508,244. The death toll has risen from 476 to 449 and 1,332 injuries, Doma said in a statement. Several countries, including the UK, Tanzania, and Zambia, have sent teams to help rescue operations.
Getting into our next story, Zimbabwe's new 300 megawatt coal-fired plant starts feeding into grid. Zimbabwe's new 300 megawatt coal-fired power generating unit started feeding electricity into the national grid late on Monday, the state power utility said, as it moves to ease extended outages that have impacted businesses and households. The Southern African country is expanding its 920 megawatt Wange thermal power station by adding two 300 megawatt units at a cost of $1.4 billion, with 85% of the funding coming from China. The first of the two units built by China's Sino Hydro was successfully synchronized into the national grid late Monday, the Zimbabwe Power Company said. Power will be progressively fed into the grid until it reaches 300 megawatts, ZPC said in a statement. The ZPC has said it expects the second 300 megawatt thermal unit to start generating power in October, bringing new generation capacity to 600 megawatts. Zimbabwe is currently generating less than half of its 1,700 megawatt demand, as the old thermal units at Wange commissioned between 1983 and 1987 frequently break down and are performing below capacity.
A Namibian court on Monday overturned a decision granting citizenship to a son of a gay couple, the latest step in a legal battle over the children of gay surrogate parents. In Namibia, homosexuality is still illegal, although the 1927 sodomy law is rarely enforced today. Yona, now 4 years old, was born to a surrogate mother in South Africa. Namibian Philip and his Mexican partner Guillermo Delgado are both listed on the South African birth certificate as parents. The Namibian authorities had refused to grant the boy citizenship and demanded a DNA test to prove that one of the child's parents is indeed Namibian. The couple refused to undergo the test. In late 2021, a local court overturned the Ministry of Home Affairs decision granting the boy Namibian citizenship based on the birth certificate. But the government appealed the decision, arguing that birth had not been registered with the Namibian authorities within a year as required by the law. The Supreme Court ruled on Monday in a decision of which AFP obtained a copy that the court has indeed gone astray in granting citizenship to a son of homosexual couple.
Moving over to Mozambique, shortages of medicine to treat cholera. The health authorities in the central Mozambican province of Zambezia have expressed concern that they are running out of medicines to treat cholera and other diseases. This is not because of any absolute shortage of medicines, but because the main north-south highway has been cut by floodwaters in Nikoadala district, thus isolating much of Zambezia from the rest of the country. Interviewed by Radio Mozambique, the general director of the National Health Institute, Eduardo Samogudo, said the cut in the road was making the transport of people and goods, including medicines, impossible. The road was reopened on Saturday, but only for light vehicles. That left a long queue of trucks south of the cut, full of merchandise for the provincial capital, Quelimane, and for the north of the country. In Quelimane, an average of more than 100 cholera patients are being admitted to hospital every day. This is putting heavy pressure on the cholera treatment center and in Quelimane General Hospital. Speaking on Sunday, Samogudo said that 400 people are hospitalized with cholera and 12 cholera patients have died. Samogudo said that Quelimane is facing serious restrictions in its supply of clean water and basic inputs, including the commercial water purifier, Seteza, and are held up in Beira. He urged the public works authorities to prioritize releasing the trucks containing medicines and humanitarian aid as soon as the roads are passable. Samogudo also wanted to end the overcrowding in the accommodation centers set up by the government as temporary housing for flood victims. Cramming large numbers of people together into the centers created conditions for the spread of cholera, he warned.
In our next story, a group of 43 Facebook moderators fired in January have announced they are filing a lawsuit in Kenya against the social network's parent company Meta for, among other things, unlawful dismissal, according to a statement released on Monday. Meta, which also encompasses Instagram and WhatsApp, has undertaken to reduce its workforce by nearly 25% in less than 6 months, a symbol of difficulties faced by the tech sector. In January, 260 content moderators working at Facebook's moderation center in Nairobi, Kenya, were informed that they would be let go by summer, the outsourcing company that has run the office since 2019. Overnight, these moderators doing critical work for East and Southern Africa have lost their jobs, the statement said. 43 moderators at Facebook's moderation center in Nairobi are filing a lawsuit against the company and its contractors for firing the entire workforce and for blacklisting all fired workers.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories, French government narrowly survives first no-confidence motion. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne's government on Monday narrowly survived the first and more risky of 2 no-confidence motions over its decision to bypass a parliament and impose a controversial pension reform. The 577-seat National Assembly lower house rejected the motion by just 9 votes, with 278 votes in favor of ousting the government, Speaker Yael Braun-Pivet announced. The failed motion was brought by the centrist Liot coalition and backed by the left-wing opposition. Lawmakers then began voting on a second no-confidence motion brought by the far-right National Rally, seen as less dangerous for the government. Results were expected imminently. The government was dependent on members of the right-wing opposition, the Republicans not voting for the first motion in order to survive. Analysts had spoken of the motion being rejected by some 20 votes, and the single-digit margin is a new blow for Borne and her government. Left-wing MPs, after the results were announced, chanted "Resign, resign" at Borne after the results were announced and brandished signs denouncing the pensions reform.
After the break, we bring you news from South Africa with Ari Goughad. Stay with us.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is, bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navrae, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
Now, South Africans celebrated Human Rights Day yesterday. The message was also very clear from leaders that South Africa still has lots of work to do to address several human rights issues currently being faced. Here to give us more on this is Ari Hochad. Good morning, Ari. Please take it away.
Yes, very good morning, Diana and Aina. Yes, the message was clear from the President, President Ramaphosa, that South Africa needs to sustain a human rights culture. So building at the moment a strong culture, or trying to build that at least. There's challenges, of course, all over the world. There's challenges in South Africa. President Ramaphosa was speaking in the art. Not often that he goes to the small places off the beaten track, so to speak, but he was there. And a few points he highlighted. It's access to water, electricity, etc., mostly for informal settlements. There's 2 million people that's displaced in that way. Also social grants, 18 million South Africans get social grants, so that's a big support that the country gives, and that's education. Education, a big part of South Africa, the human rights, the right for education. Statistics are 96% of children aged 6-year-old go to school, but only half of them get their grade 12 qualification, so that is a concern for the country. That's President Ramaphosa, that's the children in the R. It was all positive, and then gender-based violence, also a big topic constantly. South Africa do have good NGOs, good initiatives to address that, but lots of work still to be done. At least it is on the table. Those important points are discussed and being addressed.
All right, we understand that President Cyril Ramaphosa has been called on not to invite Russian President Vladimir Putin to South Africa. Tell us more.
Well, those discussions goes back to the Russia-Ukraine invasion, obviously. So recently, just a few days ago, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for arrest for the president. That is, they say that is because of transporting and misplacing children. That's part of the war. Thousands of children misplaced from Ukraine to Russia. That's one of the reasons. So there's a big BRICS, they call it, that is BRICS. South Africa is part of those 5 countries. It's Brazil, India, China, and Russia and South Africa. There's a BRICS conference in August in South Africa. So obviously then President Putin needs to come to South Africa. So that is a challenge. We've had it in 2015 in South Africa. Many will remember Omar al-Bashir. He was from Sudan, the president then. He was in South Africa also, wanted for crimes, for genocide, etc., but then wasn't arrested in South Africa. So that is a difficult one for South Africa. South Africa obviously aligning with Russia in this, saying they're neutral, but we'll see what happens in the BRICS conference later this year. They're all happy, holding hands. South Africa in that BRICS, it's important for South Africa to be there, but we'll see if all the presidents arrive in August.
I mean, if the ICC couldn't even keep Putin from visiting Ukraine, what more South Africa? Getting into our next story, Rand Water warned about continuous water shortages in some areas of Johannesburg as power failures impact vital pump stations. Please give us the details.
It is a concern. It's a constant battle for some people there. Obviously, Eskom and electricity is a big component there. It's not getting the reservoirs to be full again. It's just the quality of water as well. So it's a process that is being rushed. And so at the moment, it's the affected areas in the Johannesburg is there's a growing population in the city centre. That makes it difficult. And also the height of the area, the water needs to be pumped to higher areas. So if there's no electricity, the reservoirs run dry. So that is a concern. Hopefully they can fix that soon. So Rand Water trying to address that urgently. Down in Cape Town, rain is needed. The rain season only starts in May. It's about just over 50% the dam levels in South Africa, in Cape Town, or the Cape region, 55%. So at least there's 3 desalination stations, they call it, that takes the salt out of seawater. that's been put up a way back. But that's a Theewaterskloof Dam in Cape Town, close to Cape Town, 55% full at the moment. So hopefully it will be a good rain season for the Western Cape in the winter time.
Please tell us about the Anna Foundation and the work that they are doing right now.
Yes, briefly, it's the Cape Epic Cycle Tour that's happening at the moment. That's one of the beneficiaries. The Anna Foundation, founded in 2005 by Anna Brom, doing great work, especially on farm workers in the Western Cape. And they focus on underprivileged children via sport and life skills development. And they were there present at the Cape Epic that started on Sunday, finishing this Sunday, a big international event. And also to remember Manny Heymans, there he is, the first epic ever in 2004. Manny Heymans actually won it with Carl Platt. People forget that Namibian winning the first men's division of the epic. And at the moment, Kim Lecourt, also with Vera Lusa, and the proudly Namibian, also there they are, Vera Lusa and Kim Lecourt, the second or first podium place, the first yesterday in the second stage. So great to see they're doing well in the event, but even better to see children like that being helped by the Anna Foundation, having a chance in life. So good on them.
All right, thank you so much, Adi, for bringing us the latest news on the ground in South Africa.
It's a big pleasure and a great day for everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.
Now let's take a look at the weather predictions.
In our economic news this morning, Tanzania and Senegal team up over Airbus engine problems. Air Tanzania and Air Senegal are considering joint action against engine manufacturers of Airbus A220-300 aircraft, which have been remained grounded for the past several months owing to technical problems. An Air Senegal delegation was in Dar es Salaam this past week for discussions with Air Tanzania officials on how best to take on Pratt & Whitney, the American aerospace company that produces the PW1524G3 engines used by the planes. Both national carriers believe that the company is dragging its feet in resolving the long-standing issues of defective engines, leading to mounting losses for the airlines as their A220-300 fleets remain grounded. According to Air Tanzania CEO Ladislaw Matidi, Airbus A220-300 aircraft problems have been uncovered by all airlines operating the planes worldwide, which in Africa includes Egypt Air. From the engine defects, the shortfalls also include lack of alternative engines and the plane's body developing rust much sooner than the intimidated in its maintenance planning document, thus elevating repair and maintenance cost. The two airlines intend to take Pratt & Whitney to task for failure to fulfill its contractual responsibility to supply extra engines in the event of engine failures.
That brings us to the end of our economic news. Let's take a look at the economic indicators before we get into the sports with Adi Hochad.
Good day everyone. Time for international sports news, starting off with soccer news first. From the English Premier League, it is news from Crystal Palace that announced a new coach, and that is Roy Hodgson, and he's well known to Crystal Palace. He coached them before up till 2021, and then he was replaced by Patrick Vieira, and it is Vieira that was now sacked by Crystal Palace. That's because in the last 12 games there was no victory, no win for Crystal Palace. It is Roy Hodgson that coached Crystal Palace for many years. He's also a former England national coach, and he will be the coach for the rest of the 2023 season with the games that's left for the year. He's coming out of retirement for that. Crystal Palace are still at the moment 12th on the log of the English Premier League. There's 20 teams on the English Premier League, but more significantly, they're just 3 points above the relegation zone. The last game was a 4-1 loss against Arsenal, and the next game will be a home game against Leicester City. That will be the first game for Roy Hodgson in charge. Continuing international sports news with motor racing news, it's Formula One racing news. It's the season got going now with 2 races done, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Already Red Bull Racing dominating with Max Verstappen leading 44 points. Sergio Perez also from Red Bull 43 points. And then third is at the moment Fernando Alonso with 30 points after 2 third positions. News or comments from other racing drivers. Firstly, Charles Leclerc from Ferrari that said Red Bull is currently in a different league. And then also they experienced Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton said that the current car called RB19 racing car is the fastest that he's ever seen. And that's a big statement from Lewis Hamilton. He also dominated from especially 2014 to 2016 and 2020 in his Mercedes-Benz. New regulations in 2022 allowed all the racing companies or racing teams to design new vehicles, and Red Bull got it right, and they've got very fast straight line speed. Continuing international sports news with rugby news, and it's news from New Zealand that there's a new coach after the World Cup that concludes in France later this year. It is Scott Robinson that's been appointed as the new All Black coach, and he will take over from Ian Foster. That is after the Rugby World Cup in France that will finish on the 28th of October this year. The 48-year-old Robinson, he got a 4-year deal, a 4-year contract with New Zealand Rugby, and he will be the national coach until the World Cup in Australia in 2027. He also played 23 tests for New Zealand, and he also coached the Crusaders to 6 Super Rugby titles. Closing off today's international golf news, sport news with golf news, and it is golf news from the World Match Play Championship that's going to start later this week. That's going to be in Austin in Texas. The big news there is that members of the Live Golf initiative, Live Golf series, that's a breakaway series initiated by Saudi Arabia, and they will not be able to play in the tournament. In fact, their entries have been rejected despite them qualifying on the world rankings. So players losing out, the players like Patrick Reed, he's the 2018 champion, Masters champion, and he will probably go to court because of this ruling as well. Other big names, Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia also, and also South African Louis Oosthuizen, all playing in the Live Golf initiative, not playing in this year's Dell Technologies World Match Play Series. The PGA announced that they rejected the entry, so they said the reason is that the players violated their conflicted event ruling. So that's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
You're still with Africa. Good morning. If you're just joining us, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast. Storm Freddy, more than 400 still missing in Malawi. Zimbabwe's new 300 megawatt coal-fired plant starts feeding into the grid. In Namibia, court cancels nationality of child of same-sex couple. Tanzania and Senegal team up over Airbus engine problems.
Those have been our stories. We thank you very much for spending your morning with us. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can post them on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Please be reminded that Africa Good Morning broadcasts on DSTV channel 285 as well as GoTV channel 94 and our website, which is called Oneuptwo. And on that note, it's all our love, all our light, and a happy Wednesday.